Welcome to Wikipedia for sleep. Let your body relax and your mind unwind as we softly explore the concept of censure. Feel your eyelids grow heavy, ready to gently close, drifting into peaceful slumber. Censure. A censure is an expression of strong disapproval or harsh criticism. In parliamentary procedure, it is a debatable main motion that could be adopted by a majority vote. Among the forms that it can take are a stern rebuke by a legislature, a spiritual penalty imposed by a church, or a negative judgment pronounced on a theological proposition. It is usually non-binding, requiring no compulsory action from the censured party, unlike a motion of no confidence, which may require the referenced party to resign. Parliamentary procedure. Explanation and use. The motion to censure is a main motion expressing a strong opinion of disapproval that could be debated by the Assembly and adopted by a majority vote. According to Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, RONR, it is an exception to the general rule that a motion must not use language that reflects on a member's conduct or character, or is discourteous, unnecessarily harsh, or not allowed in debate. Demeter's manual notes, it is a reprimand aimed at reformation of the person and prevention of further offending acts. While there are many possible grounds for censuring members of an organization, such as embezzlement, absenteeism, drunkenness, and so on, the grounds for censuring a presiding officer are more limited. Serious grounds for censure against presiding officers, presidents, chairmen, and so on are, in general, arrogation or assumption by the presiding officer of dictatorial powers, powers not conferred upon him by law, by which he harasses, embarrasses, and humiliates members. Or, specifically, 1. He refuses to recognize members entitled to the floor. 2. He refuses to accept and to put canonical motions to vote. 3. He refuses to entertain appropriate appeals from his decision. 4. He ignores proper points of order. 5. He disobeys the bylaws and the rules of order. 6. He disobeys the Assembly's will and substitutes his own. 7. He denies to members the proper exercise of their constitutional or parliamentary rights. More serious disciplinary procedures may involve fine, suspension, or expulsion. In some cases, the Assembly may declare the chair vacant and elect a new chairman for the meeting, or a motion can be made to permanently remove an officer, depending on the rules of the Assembly. Procedure. If the motion is made to censure the presiding officer, then he must relinquish the chair to the vice president until the motion is disposed. But during this time, the vice president is still referred to as Mr. Vice President or MS. Vice President in debate, since a censure is merely a warning and not a proceeding that removes the president from the chair. An officer being censured is not referred to by name in the motion, but simply as the president, the treasurer, and so on. After a motion to censure is passed, the chair, or the vice president, if the presiding officer is being censured, addresses the censured member by name. He may say something to the effect of, "Brother F, you have been censured by vote of the Assembly." A censure indicates the Assembly's disapproval of your conduct. This phrase should not be included as the cause for censure may have occurred outside of meetings. A censure is a warning. It is the warning voice of suspension or expulsion. Please take due notice thereof and govern yourself accordingly. Or, if the chair is being censured, the vice president may say, Mr. X, you have been censured by the Assembly for the reasons contained in the resolution. I now return to you the presidency. Politics in politics. A censure is an alternative to more serious measures against misconduct or dereliction of duty. Canada. Censure is an action by the House of Commons or the Senate rebuking the actions or conduct of an individual. The power to censure is not directly mentioned in the constitutional texts of Canada, but is derived from the powers bestowed upon both chambers through Section 18 of the Constitution Act, 1867. A motion of censure can be introduced by any member of Parliament or senator, and passed by a simple majority for censure to be deemed to have been delivered. In addition, if the censure is related to the privileges of the chamber, the individual in question could be summoned to the bar of the House or Senate, or, in the case of a sitting member, to that member's place in the chamber to be censured, and could also face other sanctions from the House, including imprisonment. Normally, censure is exclusively an on-the-record rebuke. It is not equivalent to a motion of no confidence, and a prime minister can continue in office even if censured. Louis Riel faced parliamentary censure for his role in the Red River Rebellion, and was expelled from Parliament 16 April 1874. Japan. In Japan, a censure motion is a motion that can be passed by the House of Councillors, the upper house of the National Diet. No confidence motions are passed in the House of Representatives, and this generally does not happen as this house is controlled by the ruling party. On the other hand, censure motions have been passed by opposition parties several times during the Democratic Party of Japan, DPJ, administrations from 2009. The motions were combined with a demand from the opposition to take a certain action, and a refusal to cooperate with the ruling party on key issues unless some actions were taken. For example, on 20 April 2012, the opposition Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, your party and New Renaissance Party submitted censure motions against ministers of Prime Minister Yoshihiko Noda's Democratic Party of Japan-controlled cabinet. They censured Minister of Defense Naoki Tanaka and Minister of Land Takeshi Miida, and refused to cooperate with the government on passing an increase to Japan's consumption tax from 5% to 10%. Noda had staked his political life on passing the consumption tax increase, so on 4 June 2012, Noda reshuffled his cabinet and replaced Tanaka and Miida. On 28 August 2012, a censure motion was passed by the LDP and the new Komeito Party against Prime Minister Noda himself. The opposition parties were to boycott debate in the chamber. It means that bills passed in the DPJ-controlled House of Representatives cannot be enacted. Australia. The Senate, the upper house of the Australian Parliament, has censured 2 prime ministers in recent decades, that of Paul Keating and John Howard. The Australian Attorney General George Brandis was censured on 2 March 2015 for his treatment of Human Rights Commission President Gillian Triggs. Senator for Queensland Fraser Anning was censured for remarks he made about the Christchurch mosque shootings. Former Prime Minister Scott Morrison was censured by the Australian House of Representatives on 30 November 2022 for secretly taking on the powers of additional ministries. Former Australian Greens Senator Lydia Thorpe was threatened to face a censure motion in early 2023 over her undisclosed relationship with a Bicky boss. The motion was backed by the Coalition and One Nation, with the Labour Party considering backing the motion. She was subsequently censured on 18 November 2024 for heckling the King of Australia, King Charles Roman III. Australian Greens Senator Janet Rice was censured by the Australian Senate over protesting during a special address to the Australian Parliament by Philippine President Bongbong Marcos. United Kingdom. In the UK, the Crown cannot be prosecuted for breaches of the law even where it has no exemption, such as from the Health and Safety at Work and so on Act. A Crown censure is the method by which the Health and Safety Executive records, but for Crown immunity, there would be sufficient evidence to secure a H&S conviction against the Crown. United States. Censure is the public reprimanding of a public official or political party representative for inappropriate conduct or voting behavior. When the president is censured, it serves only as a condemnation and has no direct effect on the validity of presidency, nor are there any other particular legal consequences. Unlike impeachment, censure has no basis in the Constitution or in the rules of the Senate and House of Representatives. It expresses the formal condemnation of either congressional body or of a political party of one of their own members. Canon law. In Catholic canon law, a censure is a penalty imposed primarily for the purpose of breaking contumacy and reintegrating the offender in the community. The ecclesiastical censures are excommunication and interdict, which can be imposed on any member of the church, and suspension, which only affects clerics. Theological censure. In Catholic theology, a theological censure is a doctrinal judgment by which the Church stigmatizes certain teachings detrimental to faith or morals. See also impeachment motion of no confidence political crime. Next, we turn softly to Clara Noble. Clara Noble. Clara Noble Malvido was a Spanish lady and the wife of the poet Joan Marigal. Early life and education according to the baptism certificate. Clara Noble Malvido was born at 5 in the morning on 10 September 1872 at number 9 Biscachero Street in Lleras de la Frontera, Andalusia, as the daughter of Ernst Noble Barber, an English insurance broker who was visiting southern Spain on business when he met his future wife, Maria de las Angustias Malvido Nacido, an Andalusian lady from Lleras. She was the third of 7 children, including her older brother Ubaldo. Like most daughters of wealthy families of the time, Noble had an important cultural training, typical of the academies for young ladies that existed in the city and which also included decorative subjects, such as music, she played the piano, and the French and English languages, both of which she mastered, the latter because of her father. Wife of Joan Marigal. Marriage. The Noble Malvido family settled in Catalonia in 1885, but spent their summers in Puig-sur-Dâme, where Noble met her future husband Joan Marigal in 1888, when she was 16 years old, while he was close to 28. After 3 years of courtship, they married on 27 December 1891 in the Santa Ana de Barcelona. The couple settled in a flat on Carrer Roger de Llúria, then Paseo de Gràcia. In 1896, they moved again to Carrer de Consell de Cent, and in 1899 to their final home, very close to where the Noble Malvitos lived, in Carrer Dolphins Roman 12, N. 79, current headquarters of the Joan Marigal Archive. They had 13 children, 6 girls and 7 boys. Helena, Maria, Eulalia, twins Clara and Anna Joseph, Joan Anton, Ernest, Guillaume, Raymond, Elvira, Gabriel and Jordi. On the same day of their marriage, Marigal, who had been working at Diario de Barcelona for just over a year as editor, received from friends the non-commercial edition of Poesias, a collection of his own work. The correspondence that they maintained was published for the first time in 2011 under the title Letters of Courtship, and with the addition of the Marigalista Gloria Casals. Soon these and many other later letters preserved in the archive were published in the digital memory of Catalonia. In total, Marigal wrote 51 letters to Noble. The courtship letters between Marigal and Clara are crucial to understanding Marigal's process of entry into adult life, marriage and responsibilities, and recognition as a poet. Personal life, Noble faced brief separations from her husband when she went to Cauderetz in the summer, her children's illnesses and then marriages, and the administration of her heritage, allowing her to raise all her children and shelter them in their lives. Leading a life without excessive luxury despite her wealth. Willie Noble Malvito, Clara's sickly brother who died at 21 years old, is the protagonist of a fairly well-known poem by Marigal, En la mort d'un Jove, in the death of a young man. Influence in Marigal's legacy, Noble was fundamental in her husband's life and work. She tried at all times that family and social burdens did not interfere with Marigal's work as a writer. She was a discreet presence, quite silent, but attentive to everything that was happening around her. After the death of her husband in December 1911, Clara successfully took charge of carrying out the edition of the Aubers Completes de Marigal, which was published in 1912 by Gustave Gilly, thus tying up his legacy. Letters, documents, articles, a whole collection of material that had been kept for many years in the office on the ground floor of the tower, and that would be the core of the future Joan Marigal archive, later deposited in the Library of Catalonia. This archive also preserves Noble's documentation, such as a personal diary, letters and photographs, account books, and household invoices, material that shows her personality and the role she played as Joan Marigal's life partner. Noble, her children and her descendants fought to perpetuate the poet's memory. Death Marigal's struggles with his personal anxiety sometimes impacted his loved ones around him, especially his wife, who thus developed a tendency to hypertension. In her later years, Noble's health became precarious due to hypertension, and she broke even more during the Spanish Civil War. Noble died on 26 April 1944 in Cara Alphonse Roman 12, number 79 in Barcelona, in the family house in Sant Gervasi, which is currently the headquarters of the Archive Joan Marigot. And now a new story begins. Mary E. Ireland. Mary E. Ireland. Mary E. Ireland was an American author and translator. Born in Maryland, she lived a busy life in Washington, D.C., looking upon her literary labors as a recreation. Though she is remembered as the poetess of Cecil County, she commenced to write poetry comparatively late in life, and not until she had attained distinction as a writer of prose. From 1895 through 1918, she wrote many popular books for young people, besides being the author of stories, poems, and essays. Her works appeared in the Cecil Whig, Scribner's Magazine, Oxford Press, Arthur's Magazine, Cottage Hearth, Household, Literary World, Ladies' Cabinet, and Woman's Journal. Her most popular work was Timothy and His Friends. She translated from German the works of Bertha Clement, Elizabeth Philippine Caroline von Dewitz, Nikolaus Fries, Elizabeth Halden, pseudonym of Agnes Breitzman, John J. Mesmer, Carl Gustav Nieritz, Otto Neichmann, Emmy von Roden, pseudonym of Emily August Caroline Henriette Friedrich, Richard Roth, and Emma Seyfert. Early life and education. Mary Eliza Haynes was born in the village of Brick Meeting House, now Calvert, Maryland, January 9, 1834. She was a daughter of Joseph and Harriet Kirk Haynes. On father's side, sixth in descent from Richard Haynes, English Quaker, who came from Oxfordshire in 1682. On mother's side, Scotch-Irish, sixth in descent from Roger Kirk, who came from Lurgan, province of Ulster, in 1712. Both families bought tracts of land adjoining the 40 acres given in person by William Penn in 1701, on which to build the Friends Meeting House. They supposed they were in Chester County, Pennsylvania, but when, in 1763, the Mason-Dixon line was run, they found that they were in Cecil County, Maryland. Her great-grandfather, Job Haynes, as member of the Maryland legislature, attended, with other members of that body, the funeral of General George Washington. In the old homestead of her parents, she grew to adulthood, along with siblings Charles, Cornelia B. 1828, Lewis K., William L. B. 1825, and Reuben B. 1840. Ireland was educated in the Ladies' Seminary of Jamaica, Long Island, and had talent for music and painting. Career. When quite young, Ireland wrote a short story entitled Ellen Linwood, under the nom de plume of Marie Norman, which was published in the Cecil Whig, then edited by Palmer C. Ricketts. One of her first sketches was The Defoe Family in America, published in Scribner's Magazine in 1876, which was widely copied into other periodicals. For the next few years, she occasionally wrote for the Cecil Whig and Oxford Press. She wrote a story for Arthur's Magazine, and being in Philadelphia soon after it was written, she took it to the publishing house, and there met for the first time Timothy Shea Arthur, whom she had known from childhood through his books. He received her kindly, promised to read her story, and to let her know his decision the next day. That decision was that though entertaining and well-written, it was scarcely suited to his magazine. He suggested another periodical, where it would likely meet with favor. He also asked for another story, and presented her with a set of the magazines that she might see the style of writing that he desired. Her next story for Arthur's was a success, and from that time until his death, he remained the candid critic of all she sent him for publication, as well as of some stories published elsewhere, and the kind literary advisor and friend. She retained her first story, which he had declined for 3 years, made some changes in it, and he accepted and published it. She afterward became a contributor to Cottage Hearth, Household, and other domestic magazines, besides the Literary World, Ladies' Cabinet, Woman's Journal, and several church papers. Her time included reviewing new books for the press. She wrote 2 prize stories which took first prizes. In 1882, her short stories were collected and made into a continued story which was published by J. B. Lippincott and Co., Philadelphia, under the title of Timothy, His Neighbors and His Friends. Many letters of appreciation from distant parts of the country testified to the merit of the book, and she was encouraged to accede to the request of the Presbyterian Observer Company of Baltimore to write a serial for their paper. It was entitled Ivandale, and was warmly commended by judges of literary work. In Otterbrook's Blessing, Ireland wrote a tender, inspiring story of girl life, as told by Leela Harcourt in her diary, commenced the day she was 16, at the suggestion of her grandmother. Otterbrook Parsonage, a continuation of Otterbrook's Blessing, is as cheery and wholesome in tone as its predecessor, depicting Leela Harcourt living a happy and useful life as the wife of the village pastor. Wishing to read German literature in the original, she began studying the language. As she was unwilling to make time for regular lessons, she obtained a German pronouncing reader, and without instruction from anyone, she succeeded in learning to read and translate, pronouncing correctly enough to be understood by native speakers. This knowledge of the language was a wellspring of pleasure to her, and well repaid her for the attention she paid upon it each day. Translating from the German became a favorite pastime. She translated from the German several books, 2 of which were published as serials in the Oxford Press, and the Lutheran Board of Publication published one of her translations. From the same language, many short stories were translated by Ireland and included in periodicals of the era. Dr. Eckhart's Boys is a story of a family of children, and tells of the simplicity and beauty of the life of the family in the rural home from which emanates a religious influence. Days of Peter the Great is a true story of the times of that sovereign. Happy Days at Grandfather's tells of Lottie von Alstein, whose father, an officer in the army, was ordered to Constantinople and went to remain a year, accompanied by Mrs. von Alstein. Lottie's second year with the Wendorfs is a sequel to Happy Days at Grandfather's. Stolen for Ransom is about the adventures of a crown prince who was kidnapped while walking with his teacher on the bank of a river, and taken to a secluded house on an island, where he led a sad life until kind Providence sent him a companion, a boy near his own age, the son of a cultured and educated gentleman who passed as a fisherman. An obstinate maid, in the original, went through 21 editions before the translation by Ireland. Other translations published in book form included Red Carl treating of the labor question, Lenchen's brother, Platzbacher of Plauen, The Blockhouse on the Shore, Erna Stark, Christian Beck's grandson, her first and only school friend, Adolph's victories in Days of Abdel Raider, The School of Lüneburg Heath, Driven Out, Eric's Vacation, Life Work of Pastor Louis Harms, The First School Year, Doris and Her Mountain Home, The Tower Angel and Pixie's Holiday Journey. Personal life. In 1859, she married John M. Ireland, a country merchant, son of Colonel Joseph Ireland of Kent County, Maryland, with whom she lived in her own homestead. During the period of 1867 through the mid-1880s, they lived at the Alicia Kirk House. By 1887, they resided in Baltimore, where Mr. Ireland held the position of United States storekeeper in the Internal Revenue Department. Thereafter, they removed to Washington, D.C. They were the parents of 3 children, one of whom died in infancy. She was a member of Eastern Presbyterian Church and of its Missionary Society, as well as the Woman's Christian Temperance Union. Mary Eliza Ireland died at the Home for Incurables in Washington, D.C., October 29, 1927, age 94. Interment was at Rosebank Cemetery, Calvert, Maryland. When you are ready, we move on to bibliography of film by genre. Bibliography of film by genre. This is a bibliography of reference works on film by genre. Action/adventure. Bro Douglas. Boys and Toys, Ultimate Action. Citadel Press. ISBN 978-0-8065 to 2381-1. Brown, Jeffrey A. Dangerous Curves, Action Heroines, Gender, Fetishism, and Popular Culture. Univ. Press of Mississippi. ISBN 978-1 to 60473 to 714-1. Donovan, Barna William. The Asian Influence on Hollywood Action Films. McFarland and Co. ISBN 978-0 to 7864 to 3403-9. Blood, Guns, and Testosterone, Action Films, Audiences, and a Thirst for Violence. Scarecrow Press. ISBN 978-0 to 8108 to 7262-2. Gallagher, Mark. Action Figures, Men, Action Films, and Contemporary Adventure Narratives. Macmillan. ISBN 978-1 to 4039 to 7012-1. Guimelot-Mesplom, Frédéric. Le Cinéma des Années Reagan, Un Modèle Hollywoodien. Nouveau Monde Editions. ISBN 978-2 to 84736 to 224 to 4. Hill Katrina. Action Movie Freak. Cross Publications Craft. ISBN 978 to 1 to 4402 to 3208 to 4. Homeland Chris. Impossible Bodies, Femininity and Masculinity at the Movies. Routledge. ISBN 978 to 1 to 136 to 28443 to 4. Ines Charrier. Action Chicks, New Images of Tough Women in Popular Culture. Palgrave Macmillan. ISBN 978 to 1 to 4039 to 6396 to 3. Julius Marshall. Action, The Action Movie AZ. Indiana University Press. ISBN 978 to 0 to 253 to 21091 to 3. Lichtenfeld, Eric. Action Speaks Louder, Violence, Spectacle, and the American Action Movie. Wesleyan University Press. ISBN 978 to 0 to 8195 to 6801 to 4. Tasker, Yvonne. Spectacular Bodies, Gender, Genre, and the Action Cinema. Psychology Press. ISBN 978 to 0 to 415 to 09223 to 4. Action and Adventure Cinema. Routledge. ISBN 978 to 0 to 415 to 23507 to 5. Taves, Brian. The Romance of Adventure, the Genre of Historical Adventure Movies. University Press of Mississippi. ISBN 978 to 0 to 87805 to 597 to 5. James Bond. Reuben Stephen J. The Complete James Bond Movie Encyclopedia. Contemporary Books. ISBN 978 to 0 to 0 7 to 141246 to 9. Martial Arts. Chen Yat-chen. Women in Chinese Martial Arts Films of the New Millennium, Narrative Analyses and Gender Politics. Lexington Books. ISBN 978 to 0 to 7391 to 3910 to 3. Hunt, Leon. Kung Fu Cult Masters. Wallflower Press. ISBN 978 to 1 to 903364 to 63 to 5. Hunter, Jack ed. Intercepting Fist, The Films of Bruce Lee and the Golden Age of Kung Fu Cinema. Glitter Books. ISBN 978 to 1 to 902588 to 13 to 1. Lot M. Ray. The American Martial Arts Film. McFarland. ISBN 978 to 0 to 7864 to 1836 to 7. Mayers, Richard. Great Martial Arts Movies. Citadel Press. ISBN 978 to 0 to 8065 to 2026 to 1. Films of Fury, the Kung Fu Movie Book. Irene Press. ISBN 978-0-9, Palmer Bill, Palmer Karen, Mayers Richard. The Encyclopedia of Martial Arts Movies. Scarecrow Press. ISBN 978-0-8108-3027-1. Rance Penelope. Martial Arts. Virgin Books. ISBN 978-0-7535-1078-0. Reid Craig D. The Ultimate Guide to Martial Arts Movies of the 1970. 500-plus films loaded with action, weapons, and warriors. Black Belt Communications. ISBN 978-0-89750-192-7. Shido Kinyan. The Martial Arts Cinema of the Chinese Diaspora. Ang Lee, John Woo, and Jackie Chan in Hollywood. SIU Press. ISBN 978-0-8093-3021-8. T.O. Stephen. Chinese Martial Arts Cinema, the Wuxia Tradition. Edinburgh University Press. ISBN 978-0-7486-3286-2. West David. Chasing Dragons, An Introduction to the Martial Arts Film. I.B. Torres. ISBN 978-1-85043-982-0. War. Davenport, Robert Rousey. The Encyclopedia of War Movies. The authoritative guide to movies about wars of the 20th century. Facts on File /Checkmark Books. ISBN 978-0-8160-4479-5. Lentz, Robert J. Korean War Filmography. 91 English-language features through 2000. McFarland. ISBN 0-786-410-469. Palmer Bill, Palmer Karen, Mayers Richard. The Encyclopedia of Martial Arts Movies. Scarecrow Press. ISBN 978-0-8108-3027-1. Picard, Caroline Joan. The Holocaust Film Sourcebook. Praeger. ISBN 0-275-978-508. Thompson, David. The Fatal Alliance, A Century of War on Film. New York, Harper. ISBN 978-0-0-6-304,141-7. Animated. Beck, Jerry. The Animated Movie Guide. Chicago Review Press. ISBN 978-1-55652-591-9. Bendezi, Gianalberto. Cartoons, 100 Years of Cinema Animation. Indiana University Press. ISBN 978-0-253-20937-5. Wikipedia. Animated short films, a critical index to theatrical cartoons. Scarecrow Press. ISBN 978-0 to 8108 to 3503-0. Buchatman Scott. The Poetics of Slumberland, Animated Spirits and the Animating Spirit. University of California Press. ISBN 978-0 to 520 to 26571-4. Cohen Carl F. Forbidden Animation, Censored Cartoons and Blacklisted Animators in America. McFarland. ISBN 978-0 to 7864 to 2032-2. Crafton Donald. Before Mickey, the animated film, 1898 to 1928. University of Chicago Press. ISBN 978-0 to 226 to 11667-9. Furness Maureen. Art in Motion, Animation Aesthetics. Indiana University Press. ISBN 978-1 to 86462 to 039-9. King C. Richard Lugo Carmen R. Bloodsworth Lugo Mary K. Animating Difference, Race, Gender, and Sexuality in Contemporary Films for Children. Rowman and Littlefield. ISBN 978-1 to 4422 to 0195-8. Lamar Thomas. The Anime Machine, A Media Theory of Animation. University of Minnesota Press. ISBN 978-0 to 8166 to 5155-9. Murray Robin L. Human Joseph K. That's All Folks. Ecocritical Readings of American Animated Features. U of Nebraska Press. ISBN 978-0 to 8032 to 3512-0. Newport Richard. History of Animated Cinema. John Wiley & Sons. ISBN 978-1 to 4443 to 9257-9. Pilling Jane. A Reader in Animation Studies. Indiana University Press. ISBN 978-1 to 86462 to 000-9. Shaw Michael S. Wilt David E. Doing Their Bit, Wartime American Animated Short Films, 1939 to 1945. McFarland. ISBN 978-0 to 7864 to 1555-7. Talat J. P. Animating Space, From Mickey to Wall-E. University Press of Kentucky. ISBN 978-0 to 8131 to 3979-1. Webb Graham. The Animated Film Encyclopedia, a complete guide to American shorts, features and sequences, 1900 to 1999. McFarland. ISBN 978-0 to 7864 to 4985 to 9. Wells, Paul. Animation, Genre and Authorship. Wallflower Press. ISBN 978-1 to 903364 to 20 to 8. Wells, Paul, Hardstaff, Johnny, Clifton, Darrell. Reimagining Animation, The Changing Face of the Moving Image. AVA Publishing. ISBN 978-2 to 940373 to 69 to 7. Art/Art House. Arthur Paul. Line of Sight, American Avant-Garde Film since 1965. University of Minnesota Press. ISBN 978-0 to 8166 to 4265 to 6. Connolly, Maeve. The Place of Artist Cinema, Space, Sight, and Screen. Intellect Books. ISBN 978-1 to 84150 to 246 to 5. Zelder, R. Bruce. Harmony and Dissent, Film and Avant-Garde Art Movements in the Early 20th Century. Wilfrid Laurier, Univ. Press. ISBN 978-1 to 55458 to 0, 28 to 6. Graf Alexander, Schunemann, Dietrich. Avant-Garde Film. Rodopi. ISBN 978-90 to 420 to 2305 to 5. Hall, Phil. The Encyclopedia of Underground Movies, Films from the Fringes of Cinema. M. Weiss Productions. ISBN 978-0 to 940-1188 to 95 to 1. Hal Randall, Steingrover, Reinhild. After the Avant-Garde, Contemporary German and Austrian Experimental Film. Camden House. ISBN 978-1 to 57113 to 365 to 6. Hamlin, Nikki. Film Art Phenomena. BFI Publishing. ISBN 978-0 to 85170 to 971 to 0. O'Prey, Michael. Avant-Garde Film, Forms, Themes, and Passions. Columbia University Press. ISBN 978-0 to 231 to 85000 to 1. Reeser, Martin, Zapp, Andrea. New Screen Media, Cinema/Art/Narrative. BFI Publishing. ISBN 978-0 to 85170 to 865 to 2. Scholar, Jeffrey. Shadows, Specters, Shards, Making History in Avant-Garde Film. U of Minnesota Press. ISBN 978-0 to 8166 to 4232 to 8. Wilinski, Barbara. Shore Cedars, The Emergence of Art House Cinema. U of Minnesota Press. ISBN 978-0 to 8,166 to 3,563 to 4. Biographical. Bingham Dennis. Whose Lives Are They Anyway? The Biopic as Contemporary Film Genre. Rutgers University Press. ISBN 978-0 to 8135 to 4658 to 2. Custon George. Bio/Pics: How Hollywood Constructed Public History. Rutgers University Press. ISBN 978-0 to 8135 to 1755 to 1. Blaxploitation. Dunn Stephane. Bod Bitches and Sassy Supermamas: Black Power Action Films. University of Illinois Press. ISBN 978-0 to 252 to 07 548 to 3. Howard Josiah. Blaxploitation Cinema: The Essential Reference Guide. VAB Press. ISBN 978-1 to 903,254 to 44 to 8. Sims, Yvonne D. Women of Blaxploitation: How the Black Action Film Heroine Changed American Popular Culture. McFarland. ISBN 978-0 to 7864 to 2744 to 4. Walker, David. Rausch, Andrew J. Watson, Chris. Reflections on Blaxploitation: Actors and Directors Speak. Scarecrow Press. ISBN 978-0 to 8108 to 6706 to 2. Comedy. Austerlitz, Saul. Another Fine Mess: A History of American Film Comedy. Chicago Review Press. ISBN 978-1 to 55652 to 951 to 1. Horton, Andrew. Rapf, Joanna E. eds. A Companion to Film Comedy. John Wiley & Sons. ISBN 978-1 to 118 to 32,784 to 5. Karnick, Christine Brunovska. Classical Hollywood Comedy. Psychology Press. ISBN 978-0 to 415 to 90,640 to 1. King, Jeff. Film Comedy. Wallflower Press. ISBN 978-1 to 903,364 to 35 to 2. Laham, Nicholas. Currents of Comedy on the American Screen: How Film and Television Deliver Different Laughs for Changing Times. McFarland. ISBN 978-0 to 7,864 to 4,264 to 5. Matthews, Nicole. Comic Politics: Gender in Hollywood Comedy After the New Right. Manchester University Press. ISBN 978-0 to 7,190 to 5,503 to 4. Sutton, David. A Chorus of Raspberries: British Film Comedy 1929 to 1939. University of Exeter Press. ISBN 978-0 to 85989 to 603-0. Tooth, Michael V. Reeling with Laughter. American Film Comedies from Anarchy to Mockumentary. Scarecrow Press. ISBN 978-0 to 8108 to 8367-3. Crime. British Film Institute. The BFI Companion to Crime. Continuum International Publishing Group. ISBN 978-0 to 304 to 33215-1. Broad Douglas. Money, Women, and Guns. Crime Movies from Bonnie and Clyde to the Present. Carol Pub. Group. ISBN 978-0 to 8065 to 1608-0. Chibnall, Steve. British Crime Cinema. Psychology Press. ISBN 978-0 to 415 to 16870-0. Delamater, Jerome. Prigozzi, Ruth, eds. The Detective in American Fiction, Film and Television. Greenwood Publishing Group. ISBN 978-0 to 313 to 30463-7. Forshaw, Barry. British Crime Film, Subverting the Social Order. Palgrave Macmillan. ISBN 978-0 to 230 to 30370-6. Gates, Philippa. Detecting Men, Masculinity and the Hollywood Detective Film. Zunny Press. ISBN 978-0 to 7914 to 6813-5. Gillies, Stacy. Gates, Philippa, eds. The Devil Himself, Villainy in Detective Fiction and Film. Greenwood Press. ISBN 978-0 to 313 to 31655-5. Glassman, Steve. O'Sullivan Morris, eds. Crime Fiction and Film in the Sunshine State, Florida Noir. Bowling Green State University, Popular Press. ISBN 978-0 to 87972 to 749-9. eds. Crime Fiction and Film in the Southwest, Bad Boys and Bad Girls in the Badlands. Popular Press. ISBN 978-0 to 87972 to 846-5. Hughes, Howard. Crime Wave, The Filmgoer's Guide to the Great Crime Movies. Lie. B. Taurus. ISBN 978-1 to 84511 to 219-6. Langman, Larry. Finn, Daniel. A Guide to American Silent Crime Films. Greenwood Press. ISBN 978-0 to 313 to 28858-6. A Guide to American Crime Films of the 30s. Greenwood Press. ISBN 978-0 to 313 to 29532-4. Cite book. CS1 maint. Multiple names. Authors list link. A Guide to American Crime Films of the 40s and 50s. Greenwood Press. ISBN 978-0-313-29265-1. Cite book. CS1 maint. Multiple names. Authors list link. Leitch Thomas. Crime Films. Cambridge University Press. ISBN 978-0-521-64671-0. Mayer, Jeff. Historical Dictionary of Crime Films. Scarecrow Press. ISBN 978-0-8108-6769-7. Nestingen, Andrew K. Crime and Fantasy in Scandinavia. Fiction, Film and Social Change. University of Washington Press. ISBN 978-0-295-98,804-7. Parrish, James Robert. The Great Cop Pictures. Scarecrow Press. ISBN 978-0-8108-2316-7. Rafter, Nicole. Shots in the Mirror, Crime Films and Society. Oxford University Press. ISBN 978-0-19-517,506-6. Scaglia, Beatrice. The Thrill of the Kill, Celebrating the Crime Film Genre. Webster's Digital Services. ISBN 978-1-241-59183-0. Sorrento, Matthew. The New American Crime Film. McFarland and Company, Incorporated. ISBN 978-0-7864-5920-9. Film Noir. Mayer, Jeff. McDonnell, Brian. Encyclopedia of Film Noir. ABC Clio. ISBN 978-0-313-33306-4. Spicer, Andrew. Historical Dictionary of Film Noir. Scarecrow Press. ISBN 978-0-8108-5960-9. Gangster Film. Grieveson, Lee, Sonnet Esther, Stanfield, Peter, eds. Mob Culture, Hidden Histories of the American Gangster Film. Rutgers University Press. ISBN 978-0-8135-3557-9. Hardy, Phil. The Orem Film Encyclopedia, Volume 4, The Gangster Film. UK Orem Press. Larkwalsh, George S. Screening the Mafia, Masculinity, Ethnicity and Mobsters from The Godfather to The Sopranos. McFarland. ISBN 978-0-7864-4311-6. Mason, Fran. American Gangster Cinema, From Little Caesar to Pulp Fiction. Palgrave Macmillan. ISBN 978-0-333-68466-5. McCarty, John. Hollywood Gangland, The Movie's Love Affair with the Mob. Zenda. Martin's Press. ISBN 978-0-312-09306-8. Bullets Over Hollywood, The American Gangster Picture from the Silence to the Sopranos. Da Capo Press. ISBN 978-0-306-81429-7. Munby, Jonathan. Public Enemies, Public Heroes. Screening the Gangster from Little Caesar to Touch of Evil. University of Chicago Press. ISBN 978-0-226-55031-2. Nachemson, Martha P. Dying to Belong, Gangster Movies in Hollywood and Hong Kong. John Wiley & Sons. ISBN 978-1-4051-6370-5. Shadoyan, Jack. Dreams and Dead Ends, The American Gangster Film 2 ed. Oxford University Press. ISBN 978-0-19-514,292-1. Silver, Elaine, Ursini James eds. The Gangster Film Reader. Hal Leonard Corporation. ISBN 978-0-87,910-332-3. Smith, Jim. Gangster Films. Virgin Books Limited. ISBN 978-0-7535-3929-3. Stevens, Michael L. Gangster Films, a comprehensive illustrated reference to people, films, and terms. McFarland and Company, Incorporated. ISBN 978-0-78,864-3770-2. Jacinto, Marilyn. Pump M Full of Lead, A Look at Gangsters on Film. Twain. ISBN 978-0-8057-3892-6. Horror. Hanish, Julian. Cinematic Emotion in Horror Films and Thrillers, The Aesthetic Paradox of Pleasurable Fear. Routledge Advances in Film Studies. Routledge. ISBN 978-0-415-87,139-6. Hardy, Phil. The Orem Film Encyclopedia, Volume 3, Horror. UK Orem Press. Milne, Tom. Hardy, Phil. The Encyclopedia of Horror Movies. Harper and Row. ISBN 978-0-0-6-055-050-9. Myford, Eric. The Encyclopedia of Horror and Suspense Movies, Volume I. Create Space. ISBN 978-1-4538-2100-8. Thriller. Derry, Charles. The Suspense Thriller, Films in the Shadow of Alfred Hitchcock. McFarland and Company. ISBN 978-0-7864-1208-2. Frank Allen. Frank's 500, The Thriller Film Guide. Batsford. ISBN 978-0-7134 to 2728-8. Hanisch, Julian. Cinematic Emotion in Horror Films and Thrillers. The Aesthetic Paradox of Pleasurable Fear. Routledge Advances in Film Studies. Routledge. ISBN 978-0-415-87139-6. Hicks, Neil D. Writing the Thriller Film, The Terror Within. Michael Weiss Productions. ISBN 978-0-940-1188-46-3. Indick, William. Psycho-Thrillers, Cinematic Explorations of the Mysteries of the Mind. McFarland and Company. ISBN 978-0-7864 to 2371-2. Mess, Bill. Overkill, The Rise and Fall of Thriller Cinema. McFarland and Company. ISBN 978-0-7864 to 2751-2. Rubin, Martin. Thrillers. Genres in American Cinema. Cambridge University Press. ISBN 978-0-521 to 58839-3. Musical. Altman, Rick. The American Film Musical. Indiana University Press. ISBN 0-253 to 20514-X. Barrios, Richard. A Song in the Dark, The Birth of the Musical Film. Oxford University Press. ISBN 978-0-19 to 508,811-3. Creekmer, Corey. Mockdead, Linda. The International Film Musical. Oxford University Press. ISBN 978-0-7486 to 5430-7. Dunn, Michael. American Film Musical Themes and Forms. McFarland. ISBN 978-0-7864 to 8337-2. Grant, Barry Keith. The Hollywood Film Musical. John Wiley and Sons. ISBN 978-1 to 4051 to 8253-9. Green, Stanley. Encyclopedia of the Musical Film. Oxford University Press. Hirschhorn, Clive. Hollywood Musical. Crown. Hishak, Thomas S. The Oxford Companion to the American Musical, Theatre, Film, and Television. Oxford University Press. ISBN 978-0-19 to 533,533-0. Road Movie. Cohan, Stephen. Hark in Array, eds. The Road Movie Book. Routledge. ISBN 978-0-415 to 14,937-2. Latterman, David. Driving Visions, Exploring the Road Movie. University of Texas Press. ISBN 978-0-292-74732-6. Mazurska Ewa, Rascarali Laura. Crossing New Europe, Postmodern Travel and the European Road Movie. Wallflower Press. ISBN 978-1-904,764-67-0. Mills Kaedi. The Road Story and the Rebel, Moving Through Film, Fiction, and Television. Southern Illinois University Press. ISBN 978-0-8093-2710-2. Orgeron, Devon. Road Movies, From Muybridge and Malies to Lynch and Kiarostami. Palgrave Macmillan. ISBN 978-0-230-60,127-7. Wood, Jason. 100 Road Movies. BFI Screen Guides. British Film Institute. ISBN 978-1-84457-160-4. Samurai. Galloway, Patrick. Warring Clans, Flashing Blades, A Samurai Film Companion. Stonebridge Press. ISBN 978-1-933,330-78-5. Silver, Elaine. The Samurai Film. Duckworth Publishers. ISBN 978-0-7156-3662-6. Thorne, Roland. Samurai Films. Oldcastle Books, Limited. ISBN 978-1-84243-400-0. Thornton, S.A. The Japanese Period Film, A Critical Analysis. McFarland and Company. ISBN 978-0-7864-3136-6. Science Fiction. Cornea, Christine. Science Fiction Cinema, Between Fantasy and Reality. Edinburgh University Press. ISBN 978-0-7486-1642-8. Hardy, Phil. The Orem Film Encyclopedia, Volume 2, Science Fiction. UK Orem Press. ISBN 978-0-7064-2557-4. Google Books. Henderson, C. J. The Encyclopedia of Science Fiction Movies. Facts on File. ISBN 978-0-8160-4567-9. Kuhn, Annette. Alien Zone, Cultural Theory and Contemporary Science Fiction Cinema. Versatile. ISBN 978-0-86091-993-3. Alien Zone, Roman II, The Spaces of Science Fiction Cinema. Versatile. ISBN 978-1-85,984-259-1. Sobchak, Vivian Carroll. Screening Space, the American Science Fiction Film. Rutgers University Press. ISBN 978-0-8135 to 2492-4. Talat J. P. Science Fiction Film. Cambridge University Press. ISBN 978-0-521 to 59647-3. Western Buscombe, Edward. The BFI Companion to the Western. Andre Deutsch. ISBN 978-0-233-98,857-3. Cameron, Ian Alexander. The Book of Westerns. Continuum. ISBN 978-0-8264-0818-1. Carmichael, Deborah A. The Landscape of Hollywood Westerns, Ecocriticism in an American Film Genre. University of Utah Press. ISBN 978-0-87480 to 866-7. Calty, John G. The Six-Gun Mystique Sequel. Popular Press. ISBN 978-0-87972 to 785-7. Hardy, Phil. The Orem Film Encyclopedia, Volume 1, The Western. UK Orem Press. ISBN 978-0-7064 to 2555-0. Google Books. Kitzia's Gem. Horizons West, The Western from John Ford to Clint Eastwood. British Film Institute. ISBN 978-1 to 84457 to 019-5. Kitzia's Gem, Rickman Gregg. The Western Reader. Limelight Editions. ISBN 978-0-87910 to 268-5. McMahon, Jennifer L. Sisaki B. Steve. The Philosophy of the Western. University Press of Kentucky. ISBN 978-0-8131 to 2591-6. Saunders, John. The Western Genre, From Lordsburg to Big Whiskey. Wallflower Press. ISBN 978-1 to 903,364 to 12-3. Simmons, Scott. The Invention of the Western Film, A Cultural History of the Genre's First Half-Century. Cambridge University Press. ISBN 978-0-521 to 55,581-4. Wright, Will. Six Guns and Society, A Structural Study of the Western. University of California Press. ISBN 978-0-520-03 491-4. Other Genres Drama, Cody, Gabrielle H. Sprinchorn, Everett, eds. The Columbia Encyclopedia of Modern Drama. Columbia University Press. ISBN 9,780,231,140,324. Pornography/erotic film, Williams, Linda. Hardcore, Power, Pleasure, and the Frenzy of the Visible. University of California Press. ISBN 978-0-520-06652-6. Religion, Egil Tenzin, King, Rebecca, eds. Representing Religion in Film. London, Bloomsbury Academic. ISBN 978-1-350-14080-6. Sport Film, Edgington K., Erskine Thomas L., Welsh James. Encyclopedia of Sports Films. Scarecrow Press. ISBN 978-0-8108-7652-1. Documentary. See also Bibliography of encyclopedias. Film and television, list of books on films, bibliography of film. Film noir, bibliography of film. Documentary, bibliography of film. Horror, bibliography of works on James Bond. That is all for tonight. Let the silence settle in. Sleep well.